So today we are talking about the journey from 3D to 5D. Why do we want to talk about this? And we'll talk about in a minute what that even means. There is a shift happening in the world. For some people, we feel it like there's all these different awarenesses. Like there are veils lifting and suddenly we understand things that we didn't understand before. And it's so obvious. You're like, how did I possibly live for 40 years thinking that? It's so obvious, that this is the way it is. Also, there are times that real struggle and pain is coming up. Pain and issues that you're like, I dealt with this 20 years ago. Why is this coming back again? And it's really kind of taking a stronghold. And there's also this real sense that we're meant to be shedding something. We're meant to be releasing old patterns and even old versions of ourselves. And sometimes this is hard to do when we don't know why, right? If we know that, I'm moving to a smaller house and I need to start getting rid of stuff, then we're conscious of it, right? And we're like, okay, I'm going to start packing up these corners. I'm going to start thinking about what I do need and what I don't need. And I'm going to happily give away the things that I don't need anymore. Or I'm going to put them in the garbage, or I'm going to sell them, or whatever. I'm cool with that. But if somebody just sort of started coming into your house and just taking away things and telling you now you're going to live without this, and then then things start disappearing out of your house, you'd be like, what's going on? Like, what's going on, right? Because I don't know why all these things are going away, but as soon as we know that, I'm moving, oh, okay. So sometimes it's really helpful just to have an idea that things are changing, and so we have to start letting things go. That's all. And that's really the point of even understanding that there is an ascension, that there is a shift, that there is a very new way of living coming. And that way we kind of go, oh, so I'm like preparing for a trip, or I'm preparing to live in the mountains, or I'm preparing to live at the sea. Is that what it is? Okay, that's awesome. I can do it. I still have to go through the challenges of, I don't really want to get rid of this, but I understand why I have to, right? And so that's really the point of our talk today. How do we do it, and what are some of the shifts that we need to take part in? So what does this even mean? What is 3D? What is 5D? 3 dimension, 5 dimensions, 7 dimensions, 12 dimensions. Depending on who you talk about, there's a million versions of what all this means. I can't explain to you what 5D is. And there are a lot of people that have named it. I mean, I think there's as many names for what 3D, 5D, 4D, 6D, 12D. But none of that's the point. It doesn't matter. It's not helpful. What matters is we all know what 5D feels like. Even if we get rid of the word, we could just call it Jello consciousness if we wanted. We could call it anything we wanted. But there's a reason that we are all here on Insight Timer. We are seeking a different way of living. We are seeking, we might call it a higher consciousness. We might call it a more peaceful way of living. Deep down, we know that we want to heal something. We don't want to be in pain because we suffered trauma. We don't want to continue in these karmic loops for lifetimes after lifetimes. However we would explain it, that's 5D is where we're going, right? Whatever that is. And it's interesting, teachers and gurus, they have been sharing these ideas with us for a long time. How many teachers have said, live in the world, but not of the world? Or, love is the answer. Rest in kindness and love. Find peace within. Change yourself, not the world. How many people have told us that? And we hear the words. Like, imagine us caught in kind of that 3D consciousness, right? Where we believe in cause and effect and judgment and rating people and all the things that we've been raised with. We hear them say these things, and we deep down know that, well, that sounds like a great idea, but what are you talking about? Like, how could I possibly live like that? How could I possibly exist like that? You don't understand my life, obviously. These guys obviously live in a mountaintop in the Himalayas or something, because they're surely not having to pay the rent I'm paying, Like, it's really hard to fathom that. But today, things are shifting. It's almost like, I don't know about you, but it's almost like some days I wake up and the matrix has changed, right? The matrix has shifted somehow, that we just know things. And all of a sudden, these ideas of living in the world but not of the world starts to make more sense, right? It starts to actually make us feel like, I get it. And even if I don't get it completely, and even if I can't live it completely today, I can catch the corners of it, right? I can feel the corners of it and say, I'm starting to understand, In yogic traditions, they talk about moksha, freedom from karma, freedom from all these negative cycles we've been caught in for generations, right? So all of these teachings of shifting into an entirely, not just a different consciousness, but an entirely way of living, the messages have been there, and they've been sitting in our periphery. And it's like we know them even while we continue on in our life. We have these sitting at the sides. So regardless of what everybody calls interdimensional shifts or consciousness or ascensions or the time of the golden era or the end of Kali Yuga or however we understand it, don't worry about it. It's just a distraction. All we know is deep inside there is a way to live in joy and with inner peace. And we actually get to experience connection and love with each other. We know this is possible. This is 5D. Right? So today we're going to talk about a few things that we can do to start to go there, right? Not everything. That's a much bigger talk, or perhaps a lifetime's journey. The first one we're going to talk about is releasing drama. So I remember one of the first times I ever heard anyone speak about this journey to 5D, and he said the foundational thing we must do is to not release 3D, not release our enjoyment and our experiences in the world. We're not transcending 3D, but we are going to transcend the drama of 3D. So what does that mean? So we all go through different things. We go through job loss, we go through financial struggle, we go through relationship struggle. We have challenges with our family. We have challenges with the government. We have challenges in life. This is the 3D reality. But we don't have to engage in drama around those challenges. And the way to do that is to pursue two things. The first is understanding that maybe there is great difficulty in our lives. Well then, maybe we can try to understand the people who are creating these difficulties. Maybe we can try to understand our own triggers and struggles with those difficulties. And then the next step is to take action. Now, what am I going to do to change the direction of my boat? What am I going to do about it? Because when we get caught in a drama, and by a drama, this literally is a story. It's just like Hollywood. It's just like you've gone to the theater and someone is going to tell you a story to invoke feelings in you, right? And they're going to tell the story and they're going to set up all the actors. And there are going to be bad guys and good guys and victims. And they're going to tell you a story. And we go to the theater, we expect that. We expect to be told a story. This is what we get caught in life. We go through something difficult. And it's one thing to go through a healing journey where we release the story out of our subconscious, and then we then take action to heal it, to integrate it, to sort it, to understand it. You know, there is a time and a place for telling our story and sharing it with the world. It has to come out of the darkness so we can actually look at it. But what's going on when we tell it for the 20th time or the 40th time? And I'll say that sometimes we have to tell a story many times to understand it, to find our way through. Sometimes, you know, I was really struggling with something a few days ago, and I had to keep telling the story to like 5 different people before I could come to my aha moment, which happened late last night, where I went, oh, I get it. And now I'm out of it, right? So there is a time and a place to retell something from a whole pile of different angles to different people who will receive it at different angles to do that. That's not drama. That's trying to understand something. Drama is when you stay circling and you refuse to take action. You don't want to understand. You want to just tell the story. And this isn't a blame thing. This is what we've been raised with. This is what we've been taught. But the key is when someone, like even when you think about Hollywood, right? Hollywood creates the scene. We understand the struggle. We understand the plight of our victim. We don't want to watch a 2-hour movie of the retelling of the background of the story, right? We now want to see the person rise out of it. All right, this is the challenge. This is the arena. How does this person sort it out? Why is that intriguing to us? Why do we want to see the redemption of the human spirit? Why do we want to see them rise out of it? Because this is our ideal journey into our happiest life. Here's the world I was born into. Here's the family I was born into. Here are the traumas, the betrayals, and the struggles I've had in my life. Now, from that place, what is the understanding that I gain from it? And what are the actions I take that make me my happiest self? And all of my past struggles are now my strengths. They are now my experiences here on planet Earth, and I have a greater understanding of humanity because of it. This is releasing drama. This is why we watch movies, because we want to see the redemption of us caught in a place of no choice, a place of emasculation, a place of weakness, and we find our true strength. Every single one of us has that beautiful strength inside. So what do we do on our journey from 3D to 5D, releasing the drama? Watch ourselves. Watch our thoughts. Am I repeating in a struggle? Am I repeating in a story? And am I digging the juice I'm getting from it? Am I enjoying the self-righteousness because I can show how incredibly wrong they were? Am I enjoying the sadness? Am I enjoying the anger? Am I enjoying... What is it? What is the story I'm trying... What is the emotion I am trying to evoke from the audience with this story? Right? And then watch the people close to us. Are they falling into a drama? And again, to always discern whether or not the people around us and ourselves, are they simply repeating something because they really do want to understand? That's different. Then you can have a real conversation. And that's how you know, because you can have a conversation about it. Isn't that interesting? Have you ever thought of this? No, I haven't. That's interesting. Huh. That's a conversation trying to lead to understanding. You know it's a drama because no matter what you say, they say, no, you don't understand. You've obviously not been listening. You don't understand. And there is absolutely no allowance for interjecting new information, understanding, and you're not allowed to say, well, what if you did this differently? What if you tried this? Well, I can't. Well, I can't. Right? That's when you know. And what you do with that is different in every situation. Maybe you pray for guidance and different words come. Maybe you just let them tell the story and you go on. I've had people in my life, very wise people, that if I get circling in a story, they'll listen to it maybe 2 or 3 times. And then they'll look at me and say, I've heard you tell this story quite a few times. Do you want to talk about why? Not the story, but why do you think you're still telling the story? You know? It's just interesting. It's an interesting thing when we start recognizing it, especially in ourselves, not so much about others, but especially in ourselves. Because then we shift from being a victim of 3D to really realizing that I actually can dictate my life. I actually can make change. I can take all the stories of everything that has ever happened in my life and around me, and I can create my own hero's journey and sort it and become very strong, right? It's a very different world. We still live in the world. We still get involved. We still get upset. We still can become passionate. We can still get angry. We can still do all those things. But we don't let it slip into drama. The answer is always, what is the next step? What do I do now? Right? So, second thing I want to talk about is developing this witness mind that we have to have in order to do that. This is what we're developing in all of our meditation, in all of our yoga, in all of our tantric practices. We are developing this really interesting ability to observe ourselves with kindness, to observe ourselves from a neutral place, not with judgment, not with, you shouldn't be doing it that way, that's not the right, you know better than that, not that, but the actual ability to observe ourselves with love. In many ways, this witness mind is our connection to the divine, our divine self, God, consciousness, whatever. Because it's the whole picture. It's like one of my sisters says, seeing the situation from 50,000 feet, right? Are you able to back up, even just a step? You're in the middle of some argument with someone, some difficult situation, and you just back up one step and observe, and you say, what's really going on here? I hear all the words, I understand the infraction, I understand what's going on, but what's really going on? What power dynamic is happening? What fears are being triggered? What's going on here? And it's not for us to understand it in the other. That's something else. It's about within ourselves to say, what part am I playing in this? What's going on? And especially within our own self, if we're struggling to make change, if we're struggling to let go of old patterns, if we're struggling to let go of drama, if we're struggling to live according to our truth, and we just keep kind of defaulting to stuff we've known before and all that kind of thing, that we actually have an ability to sit quietly and watch our personality, watch our ego play out these curious patterns. In many ways, when we think of the heart center, the heart chakra, in Hindu belief, this is the seat of Atman, which in many ways is our personal experience of God, or Brahman in that case. So what does that mean? It's like, imagine the expansiveness of the world, the expansiveness of whatever you understand God, the divine, to be. And this is what they would call the macrocosm of life, right? The whole thing. Now imagine all of that as a microcosm in our heart, right? This is our God center. It's ironic, or maybe not, that when I say, who am I point right there and I say, I am Katrina. This self is so important. This self is that highest self where we can actually observe ourselves, our witness self, our whatever you want to call it, that we actually can see what's going on objectively. In yoga philosophy, they talk about something called Akosha, Kosha. It's actually Sanskrit, but that's how we would write it in English. And Akosha is a sheath or a covering. And so if you imagine that we are just energy, right? All of us are just energy. And we are existing in this curious space called Maya, where energy gets to appear real, or energy gets to appear physical. How fun is that? So these sheaths, these koshas, allow us to exist here in Maya. And they talk about 5 Maya koshas, right? The sheaths of Maya, Maya kosha. And they talk about the physical body, which I think is Ana Maya kosha. They talk about the breath body, the prana Maya kosha. It's not really the breath body, but that's how we talk about it. The prana Maya kosha. They talk about the brain, the mana Maya kosha. And then they talk about something called the Vijnana Maya kosha. Now, for many of you who study the Radiant Sutras with me on Mondays, we study the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, the wisdom of the universe. Bhairava is not easily translated. Tantra, the book, the teachings. So Vijnana is sometimes interpreted as wisdom. So the Vijnana Maya Kosha, imagine you have the body, the breath, the mind, and then you have this very curious Vijnana Maya Kosha that's next. And then beyond that is Ananda Maya Kosha. Ananda is bliss, right? Or peace or whatever. So between this physical reality, the physical body, the breath, the mind, and bliss is this beautiful Vijnana Maya Kosha. And I remember being at a yoga conference once, and the CEO of Kripalu Institute, he defined Vijnana Maya Kosha as this loving witness mind. This was our loving, non-judgmental, understanding self. And this was sort of the bridge between this very physical world and the bliss body, or our blissful experience. I also really like to say Vijnana Maya Kosha. I get a kick out of it, so I like to work it into any talk we have. But essentially, this is our witness mind. And this is really important if we want to shift into that bliss consciousness, or 5D. We must develop this witness mind. How do we do it? We practice pranayama. Pranayama are breathing techniques that help to rewire our nervous system. And they help to expand our consciousness beyond this limited, fearful consciousness, or this 3D consciousness where we're caught in the drama, in the triggers, in the emotional responses. And we actually get to experience something beyond that. So to explore pranayama, everywhere you find them, which ones make you feel more expansive? To play with them, especially if you struggle with anxiety or depression or compulsive behaviors or an inability to regulate emotions. Find a pranayama that you love. There are many everywhere on the internet, here on Insight Timer. There's all kinds of beautiful, sometimes they're called meditations, sometimes they're called pranayamas. Practice in yoga, Kundalini yoga, Hatha yoga, Ashtanga yoga. But the idea is to focus within. Allow the body to move through what it's moving. Allow the emotions to rise, and practice staying in the center. Practice staying here. Practice loving your body. If you're doing some kind of practice and you find yourself judging yourself, stay within and say, hold on, what would love say now? And it doesn't have to be a yoga practice. It could be maybe you're a runner and you love to run, but maybe there's that inner voice of judgment that's like, come on, you can do it. Quit being a baby. You can do that 1 more kilometer. And instead asking, hold on a minute, what's going on? Why am I pushing myself so hard? Why am I not listening to my body? Why am I risking injury? What's going on here? Right? And again, you don't even have to come up with a solution, but practice that witness of yourself. Maybe you're at work and someone's annoying you and you're just like, oh, this person just drives me crazy. Step back and don't observe the person. Observe yourself. Observe what's going on with love. Interesting. This happens a lot. What's the pattern? What's the trigger? This is interesting. And all we're doing, it's not about solving the solution. It's practicing getting to observe, strengthening our connection to that witness mind. Next thing I want to talk about is the importance of really paying attention to everything that comes up for you. friend of mine said recently, she said, moving into the world we're living in, we no longer have any checked baggage or checked luggage. That's what she said. It's essentially baggage. So imagine, you go on a plane and you have a carry-on bag, and then you have all the extra stuff you need that all goes into checked luggage. That's what we live like sometimes. We carry with us what we need, but then we have all of this baggage, all of these closets filled with skeletons we don't want to look at. We have all the thoughts piling up around us like things in a home, piling up things we don't need, old things we're keeping around that maybe we need it one day, or if I let go of it, will something new come in? I don't know. Old ideas, right? There's no time for that. Everything has to go. That's why all these old things are coming up. That's why things are coming up that we were sure we dealt with 3 relationships ago. Right? It's like, really? I've got to look at this again? And so what are some of these things? What are some of these old issues that are coming up? Maybe things from past lives are rising. Maybe ancestral things, intergenerational traumas and struggles are coming up. Whatever those things are that have been packed away in the back of our subconscious and our unconscious minds, they're all kind of looking for opportunities to poke their heads up, to say, can we look at this now? Is it safe? Is it okay? Are we emotionally strong enough to look at this? Which is why it's sometimes interesting, like, you think that you're just rocking along your spiritual journey, you're feeling good, you're resolving issues with family and friends, and you found work that is really great, and then you wake up one day and all of a sudden someone says something and you're like, and you're so angry about something, and you're like, really? But that's all it is. The coast is clear. We're out of trauma. We can now look at these other things now that we couldn't deal with before because we were under too much pressure. It's interesting to imagine that in this journey to 5D, the goal is simply wholeness. It's not interesting. It's not achieving some ascended spiritual space. It's not that. We're already amazing spiritual beings. We don't have to become something we're not. But the 3D world has turned us into very fragmented beings, where here's the part of me I'm okay with, and then there's all these other parts of me I can't deal with. I don't know how to live with them. And we've just tucked them away over time, over centuries. And the goal is just to bring them all back together. And when all the pieces are back together, we're whole again. That's all. So we don't have to pretend we have to transcend ourselves or something. We just need to look around. And the beautiful thing is that everything we need to look at will show up in our lives. The key is to just not ignore them. 100 years ago, we could ignore them. Or maybe 100 years ago, we had to ignore them to survive. But today, whatever it is, if you look at the stressors in your life, if you look at the things that you're struggling with, whatever they are important. So we have to look at them. Journal. Do the yoga. Talk to a counselor. Whatever it is, whatever it takes, whatever the message is, pray about it, meditate about it, listen to your divine guidance. If a person's face appears in front of you, go and talk to that person. They have information for you. But the key is, in this time of shift, false comfort doesn't work anymore. We can't pretend we're okay when we're not. We have to face whatever it is and to know that it's okay. It's not painful. We just simply have to look at it, understand it, take whatever action we have to take, and integrate it back in. Take that piece and put it back in a healthy way. That's all. But this is really important, that whatever's coming up, look at it. It's a friend. It's a long lost part of ourselves that we really want to look at. And maybe it's poking us with sharp sticks because it really matters, right? Another thing I want to talk about is to be really careful about divisive topics. Have you guys noticed how many divisive topics there are now? It used to be that we just had to avoid politics and religion. But today, it is like everything is a divisive topic. Everything. Beware. Every time a divisive topic comes up and we take a hard stance on one side, we contract as a human being. And you don't have to believe me, to watch yourself contract as you partake in a divisive topic. Because to understand that the journey to 5D is not about being right. It's not about being clever. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about wholeness. It's about understanding. It's about driving our own boat. You know, there's a saying, I don't remember the original saying, or maybe I've never even heard the original saying. But it comes from an old philosopher. And what it was it was all about how the emperor, if the emperor wants to keep the people busy and not focused on what's going on at the palace, he said, just give them bread and circuses and they'll never pay attention to what's going on behind the curtain. Feed them, make their bellies full, and entertain them with battles in the Colosseum, with drama. Keep them busy, and they'll never pay attention to what's really going on. These are the divisive topics, whatever they are. And you guys know I don't have to name them. But they are everywhere. There is no understanding desired. There is no action that is going to be taken. Just be aware. And it's something that I've really watched myself because, you know, we all have a favorite emotion that juices us up. And I don't mean joy and happiness and bliss and pleasure. I mean a negative emotion. I mean an emotion that you really dig. I personally love self-righteousness. That has been my juice since I was very young. And again, not on a good day, but on a bad day, oh, and maybe it's because I come from a long line of preachers and teachers, but I love me a good soapbox. So a divisive topic for me is like cocaine, right? It's like, oh yeah, give it to me. Let me debate it. Let me show you how wrong you are. Right? But every time, and I've really noticed this more in the last 4 years than I've ever noticed in my whole life, is that when I partake in any of these topics, I start to feel very dark inside. I feel sad. And it's hard to shake it after. It's almost like it's bad adrenaline. Like it poisons me. And it certainly takes me no further into bliss consciousness. So just be aware as we walk through life. Be aware of the divisive topics. Again, it doesn't matter whether you're right. It doesn't matter whether they're right. This is the old game. This is how we keep the people busy, keep them fighting amongst themselves. And they'll never take steps forward in their own life. They'll never become empowered. So to really watch these topics, are they bringing us forward in any way? Have I actually left my own mountain that I'm climbing in order to fight about something that has nothing to do with me? And again, it's not about not being discerning in life. It's about watching the world, watching what's going on, and then taking steps forward in your own action based in your own discernment, and leaving everybody else alone. Every so often a divisive topic arises that you need to make a choice in your own life. Make the choice and continue walking. You will be so surprised how irrelevant that topic becomes once you take action. But most of the divisive topics that are being thrown into the pot right now actually have nothing to do with us. So just to be aware, just to watch. Again, the goal is wholeness. It's not about being right or wrong. The last thing I want to talk about is timelessness. And timelessness is not linked with immortality. Part of the 3D world is interpreting the world in terms of past, present, and future. So we have all of these memories that we lodge in the past. We have all these hopes and dreams in the future. And it is part of our reality, right? We all had childhoods. We all had past relationships that perhaps still have imprints on us. But we have to really be careful right now. Are we even in this moment? Are we actually alive right now? This is 5D consciousness. Being right here all the time. The expansiveness of everything exists only here. When we are thinking about the past, thinking about the future, there's no energy there, there's no life there. Even if they're wonderful thoughts, even if they're wonderful reminiscing or wonderful dreams about possibilities, they're okay. But it's really important that we don't stay there, that we actually live just here, right now. Yeah, I remember back in 2018, and I gave away all my belongings. I was down to a backpack. It was a big backpack, but it was a backpack. And it was really challenging to give up all of my photo albums of the farm, of my children, of my past, of my high school and university years. And I did take some pictures of some of the pictures. There's some cool apps out there that let you do that. But it was very interesting to let go of these huge books. I was a real photographer. I loved documenting my life. And it was really interesting to let go of my past. It was interesting to let go of all my belongings, the books, bookshelves full of books, clothes, memories. But it became a real life of only living in this moment. Wherever I was. Someone once asked me, but don't you miss having your favorite coffee cup and your favorite chair to read a book in? Don't you miss that? And it's interesting, now that I'm not traveling and I have now accumulated a household again, have my favorite mug and my favorite chair and my favorite bookshelf, and, all the comforts of home have returned to me. But it's an interesting experience to enjoy your coffee or tea in whatever mug you have in that moment, with whatever chair you are sitting in, with whatever view you happen to be having. It forces you into the present. And then it's a very interesting thing to always live there. To let yourself always stay in the present all the time. To allow things to be shifting and changing. And it could be as simple as walking through your home and saying, wow, I don't read that anymore. I don't use that anymore. Maybe it's about buying a new mug. A mug that reflects April 3rd, 2024. Who are you today? Are you really the same person as you were a year ago? And the problem is, we can get stuck on who we once were. But right here in this moment is an infinite being experiencing the world. Right in this moment, I have new thoughts. I have new ideas that I can experience in this world. I have a full life to live right here in this moment. It's really, really important. If we find ourselves perpetually going back into the past, whether to relive painful things or joyful things, or going into the future and imagining painful things or imagining joyful things, and to really come to a place that where we are going right now, in this shift in consciousness, all of those things are slowly going to become less and less real. And in this moment is everything. And what's crazy is as we start to play in this moment only, time starts to bend. It's one of the most curious things about the study of time. And even great scientists like Einstein used to say, time is not what we think it is. It is not this linear, clockwork kind of time. It will shift when we fall into timelessness, when we pursue the things we love, when we are completely present and completely focused. Our experience of time changes completely, and we start to fall into this beautiful ascended 5D bliss consciousness. So, lots to play with. How do you recommend living in the 5D energy every day? I've read a few things around this, but I would love your take. It's all of these things. It's so important to understand that this is very practical. It's not living in drama, inside of ourselves or with other people. If things come up, looking at them with a loving witness mind. It's about avoiding divisive topics and truly following your joy. It's actually not pie in the sky stuff. And then what happens is we become very happy. 5D energy is very joyful, right? It's not disconnected. It's not aloof. It's not like somebody meets you and they're like, whoa, she's so 5D. All they know is wow, it's so quiet and peaceful to be around you. It's just having fun, right? It's really, it's almost like, someone once said to me that, if you met someone who was, say, a true Christian, and I don't mean in a religious sense, but someone who truly embodies the love of Jesus or the love of God, you'd never know what religion they came from because they would just be simply happy people that you knew. There are those of us who remember life without computers and cell phones and others who don't know a life without them. Will there be a time when some people recall the 3D and others only know of 5D? I would imagine so, because you can feel the shift inside of you, right? Like even, it's like every time we release something, it's just gone. Like I think about that even with my partner. You know, we have really different conversations than I've ever had in other relationships, where something comes up and we dive deep into it, whatever it is. And then afterwards, the issue is just gone. And it's hard to even articulate what it was about. And I find the same thing in the dramas of the 3D world. It's hard to remember why you ever cared about them. And then you just go on living, and it just becomes sort of and it's interesting, like, and then all of a sudden what happens for me, I watch movies that I watched years ago, you know, and you try to watch it and you realize, wow, this is just a movie about people and all of their issues and all the dramas that are created around the fact that that person's always angry and this person is, I don't know, sleeping with that person's husband and everything. And suddenly it's not even interesting to watch. So you allow everything that's happening. So you always have discernment. Like this is the really important thing, that if something is happening, you always have choice. Like this is one of the difficulties of 3D experience, is we feel like we don't have choice. Like we feel like we are trapped. We are victims of a pattern. We are victims of our childhood. We are victims of our past experiences. And because of that, we don't make new choices. We don't leave the dysfunctional relationship. We don't seek a new job. We don't move from the community that we don't enjoy. We make choices. And every time we make a choice, we define our life. So it isn't that we sit in allowance of situations that we don't like. We always make choices. That's what creates the world. Like when we say that we create our reality, we create our reality, whether we choose to stay or we choose to go. Right? But we always, so it isn't a case of, you know, allowing someone to be cruel to us and staying with it or oppressing us or anything like that. We always make choices. So you were saying that we can also pick our dramas. Well, totally. And we don't even choose them. Like we write our own stories. It's like, so lots of you guys have heard me talk about the show Ted Lasso. This is why I love Ted Lasso, right? Because Ted Lasso takes situations that we've seen that could turn into some great big drama fest, and the writers straighten the path. Like you're watching it and you're sure that this is going to go this way, and they find the straight path. They find the non-drama path, right? That's what's so genius about it. Like it literally, in a very light, funny way, shows us a different pattern. So genius. Like I can't even tell you. I'm watching it for the second time because I'm just so thrilled by it. Does 3D include dense interpersonal dramas, estrangements, and 5D recognizes the illusions of grudges people hold, estrangements, or weird interpersonal dynamics that play out in extended family? Totally. But the thing about the 5D is you don't judge it. It's not like you watch and say, I see your wounding and I see what you're doing there. Like it's not from a place of judgment. It's from a place of love that you just look at people and it's just not for you. That's just their journey and they need to go through it. Just like we all have had to go through the trouble, the dramas and the struggles that we've been through. So it's always interesting, like, you just aren't attached to them anymore. But you don't need to change people. Because we also recognize that we've had to do it too. And they have to do it, and that's all, you know? So thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day.